Hey, welcome back, Levelin Up Nation. I have Dan Cragun on today.
Real estate now allows me to supplement them or to help them live a much better lifestyle than they otherwise could. They gave me plenty, so it's time for me to give back to them, and it's an honor for me to do. The question that we would ask, no matter what it was how can I accomplish it? Because it resets your entire focus on.
Hey, welcome back, Levelin Up Nation. I have Dan Cragun on today. Now, you may not know him yet, but you are going to absolutely love what he has to share. We're going to be talking about commercial success. Now, not taking like filming commercials. We're talking about commercial real estate. He is an expert when it comes to understanding how to source properties, how to really put them in there and make them profitable long term. And one of the things you need to know about him is he's a lawyer. He absolutely knows the ins and outs of contracts and everything that you need to know to be able to take your business to the next level. So excited to have him on today. He is a wonderful example of what happens when you take consistent effort and put it into your real estate and a way to monetize your message, which is amazing. So as I'm introducing him, you also need to know this. He's part of Cragun Holding Company. And as you are listening to his background, he has not only done a boatload of real estate, he knows how to help people get out of their own way. And I hope today this conversation will be able to come back to, if you're interested in commercial real estate, you're interested in figuring out how you can monetize your message. Bam, we're going to hear some great things and have a wonderful conversation. Well, Craig, Dan, welcome to the call. So excited to have you on today. How are you doing, my friend?
Great. Thanks for having me, Brigham. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got acquainted at the E3 conference through Renatus. I was just blown away with your experience in sharing how you overcame so many challenges with one of the commercial property examples that you brought up. We might go into that, but I really want to hear, how did you get started and why do you do what you do right now?
That's a great question. I'll probably start with the why.
Perfect.
For me, it's all about family.
Mhm.
And I grew up in a great family, my great mom and dad. But they faced a lot of challenges, whether it was financial or whether it was legal or other issues that I saw keep cropping up. And one thing I knew from childhood on is I absolutely did not want to be in a position where I wasn't in control of my own future, when I wasn't in control of the amount of money I made, when I wasn't in control of how I dealt with my own family. I just absolutely, it was a need. It was a craving from childhood that I needed to understand how the world worked. And for me, I went into, I debated when I first got married to my wife. We debated over whether I should go to law school or become a realtor, because I always did like real estate. In fact, when we, even before we got married, I had put an offer in on a duplex, so that we could live in one side for free and we could rent out the other side. My wife didn't know that, or my fiance at the time didn't know that. I had no money. Luckily, she was a good saver. She had money. But I was so desperately craving that independence, that financial independence, and just being in control of my own destiny, that put in the offer. It worked out fantastic at that duplex from day one. And so we've loved real estate. I've loved being an attorney. I picked the attorney route because I wanted to know, how does the world work? Why is your shirt made of the material it's made of? Why, just why, all of the whys out there. And that's helped me immeasurably, even on the real estate component of building a very small empire, but my own empire that creates my own freedom.
Oh, that's awesome. Really family focused. One of the things that impressed me about you is when I met you and your wife, you are very faith focused too. And I think anytime you can get in alignment with your family, your faith, your finances, you start to be able to live in purpose, on purpose. And I love that you do that. And you're a great example to not just, hey, here's how you make money, but here's how you make a life that's meaningful. So you said family is so important to you. I would love to see, how does your commercial success in real estate help you in your family life?
Well, in every aspect. I'm going to give you a couple just brief examples. One is, my parents are very elderly at this stage, and again, I told you they experienced a lot of crazy stuff. The real estate now allows me to supplement them or to help them live a much better lifestyle than they otherwise could. They gave me plenty, so it's time for me to give back to them, and it's an honor for me to do it. But I couldn't do it without the real estate, especially since I'm now, almost retired as an attorney. I've sold the law firm, and so my sources of income really hinge on the real estate. And so that's huge for me. It's also taught my kids how to work because they've helped us remodel different projects, and we're very hands-on on our projects. We don't outsource a lot because we like that money flowing back into our pockets. So it's taught my family how to work, and ultimately, probably the biggest experience in it is my wife had some health issues several years ago, and I was making great money as an attorney. I owned the law firm, and it was fantastic. But I was really wondering, why am I working so hard to create a future for us? And when you're working for yourself, you don't have a retirement. And so, real estate was our form of retirement. But I was wondering why I was working so hard at the law firm when we had sufficient for what we would need for the rest of our lives, without a doubt. And if I wasn't going to be able to share it with her because something happened, heaven has blessed us. I'm not even worried about that because our health is great right now. But that ultimately changed my mindset to, no, we're going to do stuff together, and it's going to be the two of us. And real estate is something you can do together. In fact, you will do it together. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She's an absolute mastermind at so many areas of real estate. And so we really complement each other as a team. So family's everything. I mean, it's just important.
For sure. Thank you so much for letting us see not just what you do, but why you do it. Having that underscore of, hey, I want to help people. Yes, I want to make a lot of money, but I want to have a lot of fun too. I think that's so important. So one of the things that I've noticed is commercial real estate, one of the biggest benefits is economies of scale. It's not all in one single family residence. So if you have that person move out, you have all your income come to a zero. Tell us a little bit of why you chose commercial real estate as the vehicle for you to build your wealth, and how that has helped you do this in a manner that you think you could pass on some of those information or some of those tips to other people.
It's a great question. Now, originally, we did residential. Told you we had a duplex, and I went to law school. We sold it. We came back, and then as an attorney, my brother's a real estate broker in Utah.
Nice.
And he would occasionally find us a fix and flip or a residential one where we had tenants, and we would hold it, which were great. If my brother was on the podcast, we would have a 30-minute argument over whether residential is better than commercial. It's just different strokes for different folks, and so I don't think either of them is necessarily superior. We landed on commercial because I was part of a much bigger law firm as a managing partner, and we decided that we wanted to go down to a smaller format, as a little simpler life. And so we bought our first commercial property for the law firm to be in there. So it was very much owner occupied. We figured that was a smart way to, if I retired and gave that up, we'd, bring in $5,000-6,000 a month. But then the addiction started. And I wanted to start buying and buying and buying. And so we would buy value add properties. We would turn around and we would work together as an entire family. My kids were raised on that. You can't very much take them to the law firm and teach them how to work. And, I grew up on my grandpa had a cherry orchard, so I learned to work partially there. My wife lived on a farm, and she learned to work with the cows. And so we had to have a way for our kids to learn to work. And so, but for commercial, I'll just give you, I know I'm long-winded on this one, Brigham. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's okay, Dan.
I'm also passionate about this stuff. So one of the, you talk about the economies of scale, and at E3, I shared a lot about Plaza 29. So it's probably the 13th or 14th property we'd purchased of the commercial ones that we buy and hold now. It was a scary proposition. We bought it under the idea that another company I was part owner in, which was a manufacturing company, makes Letterman jackets, does other things, that it was going to occupy the full 35,000 square feet. And that's, for us, that was a very big space. We had a great niche during COVID. We already owned a bunch of 2,500 square foot spaces and 1,250 square foot spaces. And when people downsized, it filled up everything we had. So we were 100% occupied. We we felt great about it, and we both felt great about buying this building, and we turned around, we bought it only to find out that that company could not go into that space for a variety of reasons. So that was one where my wife.
Wait a second, let's stop just for a moment. You said you had one tenant that was going to fill up everything. You're like, oh, 100% occupancy. It's going to be amazing, just like a single family residence. Then that tenant's like, sorry, not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
Now that panic starts coming, what did you do?
Boy, does it ever. So, and if I mean, there's a lot of things I would love to talk to you about, but pivoting is probably one of the most important things that you can do. So you can sit there frozen, or you can really, one great thing about having your back up against the wall is you become hyper focused. And in this case, we became hyper focused. And kind of the backstory of that is when we would list any of our other properties that were suites, for offices and for medical, we would get phone calls all the time, and we were leasing out the entire suite, not individual offices. So we would get phone calls all the time from people who said, hey, I see you have this listing. Would you lease me an office? And that just simply wasn't something that we thought we could do. But with this building, if we turned it into individual offices, then we're capturing, I don't have to pay any more for advertising or marketing because those people are already calling us. And if they're interested in it. And so we took that leap of faith, and it was a leap of faith. We pivoted, we headed straight towards, nope, we're just going to lease these out as individual offices. It turned out to be one of the greatest blessings in our lives, because as fast as we could remodel a space, it was being leased out. And you want to talk about miracles and about, at first we were questioning, Heavenly Father, why would you do this to us? We felt so good about this, and we, thought about it. We tried to bring him into the equation and still thought it was great. And for that brief period, we were just like, why? And now we know why. I mean, our income off that property would have been, with the single tenant, it would have been about 25,000, which would have covered the bills and put a little bit of money in our pocket. And now we're, our goal then was 30,000. Then our goal was 40,000 a month, and then our goal was 50,000 a month. We've hit that, and my new goal is 60,000 a month, because there's all sorts of add-ons that we can continue to do. We have conference rooms in there they can lease out. We have vending machines. We have we put up a digital advertising. So it was really about pivoting and finding that there's a market that you didn't really know existed. And it consisted of, small businesses starting out. We have, I think, 39 mental health therapists. Clearly, they don't necessarily want all of their clientele in their, in their home. So there are plenty of businesses that still can't operate from their home, despite what COVID taught us. So that was my long-winded answer. Hopefully that answers.
Okay, I'm going to recap that because that was amazing. I hope you guys caught it, how awesome that was. You first thought, man, this one guy coming in with his whole business, renting out the whole suite, that's going to be enough to cover the minimum of what you're thinking and still make some money. But sectioning it off into individual offices and then really catering your market to what was already coming to you. You didn't have to do extra marketing for it. That was so genius. What was it about that, breaking it into individual pieces, that long-term has helped you go from, like you said, 25,000 a month to over 50,000 a month? What were those shifts? Is it just, hey, we're improving individual units, or is it adding value? You said vending machines. What were the ways that you were able to go from 25,000 all the way up to 50?
Again, it goes back to your economy of scale. We changed our model. Everywhere else, we lease per square foot. And then in the Utah market, Ogden area, I mean, you're going gangbusters if you're $20 a square foot, and maybe you've got some triple nets, or maybe you've got some cam fees that are another $4 or $5 a square foot, at the most. And so you're probably capping out in that $20 to $25 per square foot. By leasing individual offices, let's say our smallest suites, they go for $450 or $475, including the cams. I'm only paying the internet once, but now multiply that by, I think we have 50 offices upstairs and probably 40 offices downstairs. Just multiply, I'm only having to pay internet once for these tenants. And yet I'm able to spread that. I'm only having to remove snow for one parking lot, but it's spread over 90 tenants. And so for them, they're getting a lot of value. And not only that, they can come to work. We made it really nice. It went from Class C office space to pretty close to Class A office space. We updated lighting. We did, all the things we needed to do to remodel the space. But they get the value of they can come to work. They have access to conference rooms, but they don't have to clean the conference rooms. They have access to bathrooms, but they don't have to change out the toilet paper. They can come to work and they can work. And a lot of people love that not everybody's entrepreneurial minded in the sense of, they're willing to, change the garbages out or do everything else. So you're adding value across the board, whether it's the way they work, whether it's their lifestyle. At the law firm, I always believed that I was spending as much time there as I was at home. So I made it a point to make sure it was as nice as my home. And we've done the same for that. And somebody can come in and rent a single office, for $450, $750, or $1,000 or $1,500, depending on what they've chosen to rent there. And they're getting all the amenities. They have, I think we have 5 or 6 waiting areas. We have, very plushed out bathrooms. We have the small conference room that's a traditional board looking room. We have a bigger one where they can do trainings for up to 40 to 50 people at a time, all the arrangements that they want to make. And so we're giving them absolute value for their money, and we're still making an absolute killing. They are not mutually exclusive.
That's so great. When you focus on creating value for people, I hope you guys are hearing this. It's not just, hey, I'm exchanging money. This is so valuable that I'm happy. You're creating happy tenants. And one of the things you said earlier that I thought was great was it's not just, hey, I'm making this office space nice. You want to make it as nice as your home. You want to make it a place that people feel comfortable. They can go and not have to change out the trash and clean the conference room. That's a huge value. So think about the things that you do as far as adding value from a C class to an A class property. What are some of those things that you've noticed in commercial real estate that you're like, well, this is worth putting the money into, and these things maybe aren't? Because I know in residential real estate, you're talking about bathrooms and kitchens most of the time, or adding a bedroom, maybe finishing some things in the basement. What are the things in commercial real estate that you're like, this is where the value actually is in your experience?
I would say lighting is critical.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to have to change out only one thing in an entire building, it would be lighting. It sets a mood. It creates detail. This building, when we bought it, was dark, dingy. The spirit of it was just really sad and dead. When we started bringing lights, even with the old carpet, it still looked 50 times better. It felt 50 times better. It felt safer. Lighting is critical. Secondary to that, I would say, paint. My wife is an absolute expert painter. Not because she went to any training, but because she has painted so many buildings. I'm not allowed to pick up a paintbrush, but I can do wood floors, and I can do commercial carpet, and commercial carpet's so easy to work with. Anybody can do it. So if you're trying to save costs, or if you're trying to increase the value, swap out the carpet. We added lockleys, which are digital locks. So when we get a new tenant or an old tenant, we can just delete them out of the lock for their unit. That looks very classy, looks very upscale. Trying to go from a Class C to a Class B or a Class A, it's all about technology. We were worried because the location, we thought it was not a great location when we bought it. Great for what we were going to do with the other company, but not so great. That was part of our panic. Turns out it was a fantastic location. We didn't know what they need. So we threw the test out there, and the most important, if you really want to add value for individual clients, is we listen to them. We actually were going to add 4 more offices to a specific area of the building, but got so much feedback about, I wish this place had a conference room, a big conference room, one where you could change up how it looked. You could hold, 40, 50 people in there. You could hold a luncheon in there. And so again, we took the gamble that our tenants would be happier, they'd be less inclined to leave if we got rid of those 4 rooms, which would have produced about $4,000 a month is what we would have got out of each of them, because they were big and had some windows with them. We swapped that out for a big conference room. People absolutely love it. So it's not that the tenant is always right, but certainly what they need and want inside their business is something you should not ignore.
That's a beautiful way to really pour into your people. Let them say, I hear you. And even though it wasn't the most profitable thing in the short term, if you keep those tenants long term, not having the vacancy, that is a no-brainer.
They also become your cheerleader.
Yeah.
So the second we landed a few tenants, our ability to land the rest, it was just, we love it. So we would even have, patients coming in for therapy who were like, can I rent a building here? Or the therapist calling their buddy and saying, hey, we hated the other place. The walls were, thin and you could hear stuff. And we retrofitted all our walls with insulation because we knew that was the target market. We were very targeted on these professionals that would keep the building quiet. So we retrofitted them all with insulation, and we had sound noise suppression. We have music playing in there. So for us, it was, that was key. That's key.
Absolutely. Well, as far as being able to hone in on commercial success, that was a topic for today. I feel like you over delivered on the value adding aspect of that. What is something that, as a new person, maybe they haven't even done a whole lot of real estate, especially in the commercial space, what is something that you wish you knew early on that would make everything easier?
Well, I'm going to tie it back to the law firm. If you were an attorney that worked for me and you wanted to get fired fast, say something was impossible.
Okay.
Because those were the only words in the law firm that I did not allow. I could not tolerate. I don't like the mediocrity of the idea of it's impossible. The question that we would ask, no matter what it was how can I accomplish it? Because it resets your entire focus on what I'm going to do. It's just, how can I do this thing? And if that's your thought, how am I going to get into real estate? And it's impossible because, I don't make enough money, or I don't have a down payment. Get rid of the I don't have. So the I can't. How can you? That is the question. Just how can you? I did it with, my first duplex. I had zero money.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was going to work out. I hadn't even consulted with my wife or fiance at the time. I don't recommend that, but
Right.
certainly even back then it was, no, this has to happen. This just has to happen. Like there's you have to burn your boats. There's just no way back. And so I think, look, if anything, you've got to just change your attitude. Get rid of the idea that things are impossible. They're not. That E3 conference was fantastic about talking about there's a way. You just may not know the way. And I learned a whole lot. I thought I was a real estate expert and came in and was taught a whole new set of techniques there. And so you're always in that learning process.
And that just reminded me of John Maxwell quote. It says, leaders know the way, they go the way, and they show the way. And I think one of the things that we can take away from this is when we focus on how can we accomplish it, and we say, it's not just how, it's who can help me accomplish it. You surround yourself with the right people, your mind starts to go from, well, I think this is possible, to, well, they did it and they did it and they did it. Wow, it's inevitable. It's something that we can see happen all around us if we're in the right groups. Now, I did have my mission president's wife, Sister she shared this story with me, and is such an interesting example. She said, if you take a glove and you throw it in the mud, does the mud get glovy? Like, no, it doesn't. It's like, so who you associate with actually matters. Your people that you surround yourself with, if they are always negative, they're saying things like you said, is I do not let people say things are impossible. Absolutely agree. If you're constantly positive, you're putting out the vibes that, you know what, I know this is possible. I just need to figure out, where are those resources? How can I be resourceful and make it happen? Because when your back's against the wall, like you said, you get resourceful.
And I think use your strengths.
Yeah.
Experience is a strength. But when I left law school, I knew I was opening my own law firm right out of the gate. Inexperience is an equal strength. I did so many things that other attorneys were like, that's impossible. And I had no clue, so I did them.
That's so great. You're like, I didn't listen because I didn't know it was impossible.
And I didn't know. And I think that same blessing of inexperience starting out in real estate is you do something and you don't know that it's impossible. I mean, that impossibility is this false construct that somebody told you, that, the mediocre person in your life, who is somebody you probably love and somebody that you really appreciate, but they're like, that's not possible because it wasn't for them. But
Right.
they don't know you. They don't know what's in your heart. They don't know what's in your soul. They don't know what your destiny is, because you're going to create your destiny.
So good. That was bars right there. If you're a rapper, I could be like, hit that. It's so good.
and
Now,
I'm a big fan too of, no matter what we're going through, it's judo versus karate.
yeah,
Karate is force for force. Judo is, if somebody's going to throw a punch at me, I'm going to use their own momentum and I'm going to throw them against the wall by just grabbing their arm and pulling them. And it's the same thing when you're dealing with anything in life. You can be hit by a train, and my only thought in my mind is going to be, how can I use this momentum to my benefit as I'm flying through the air?
that's crazy. Dan, I had one of my friends, his name is Dan as well, but he came to the E3 conference, and the first day of it, he literally got hit by a train in his car. Like, super scary. He thought he was going to die. It was one of those moments where you're like, I am so blessed. And one of the things that we noticed was sometimes you have these things happen to you, and if you aren't aware of how God is blessing you, you don't recognize his hand in all things. Oh my goodness. You can say, you know what? He has some plan for me that is something I don't necessarily know yet, but I'm still here. I know you're a missionary right now. One of the things I'm impressed with is you are just absolutely blessing people's lives in the real estate realm. You're doing it in your service as well with your church. So what are the things that you have been able to do in your commercial success that have impacted your spirituality? Because I'm also a return missionary. So I love to hear people that are going out there and serving the Lord.
There's a lot of scriptures that talk about test him.
Mm-hmm.
He'll prove himself. The Lord will prove himself. Steve Harvey does an amazing job of talking about, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to sit here until you deliver it. Because you said, if I don't ask, then I won't get. But if I ask, I will get. And one thing I've found, again, we work in my mission right now. We work with the homeless and people transitioning out of prison to get their life back on track. And they don't know how to go about doing it. They don't even start with the small stuff. They don't start with the rituals. And part of spirituality is your rituals. Am I praying every morning? Am I reading my scriptures, every day? Am I, if I want to be healthy, am I just starting the day off drinking, a bottle of water? It's just those small rituals, and everything builds off of there. And so I think that in real estate, like there's amazing things that we can do. We can help people. Now, on the other hand, I do run my business as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And because I make enough money, I can use the money afterwards as a charity. I can use it to bless the lives of other people. I can donate it. I can do all sorts of things with it, but not if I didn't run my business as a business. That part should not be a charity. You can do kind things in the business. You can always be kind. I tend to be a mirror. If you're very kind to me, I'll be very kind to you. And if you're not so kind to me, then I'm going to reciprocate, because that's the language you seem to understand.
That's a great way to think about this. You have to run your business like a tight ship. Otherwise, you won't have overflow to give. I think of it like this analogy. God's always pouring into our cup. And if we aren't there to receive, then we miss all those blessings. But we have our cup ready. We get those blessings in it. At some point, our cup overflows. And you're like, oh, who else can I bless? And you're like, oh, I'll make sure that they get their blessings as well, because I'm not using those overflowing blessings. But if you didn't have the cup ready to have all of those blessings get captured, like your commercial real estate example, you're not able to provide the services and the value for people, you diminish your ability to help others.
Yep.
So it comes down to what my friend David Meltzer, one of his mantras is, help a lot of people, make a lot of money, and then have a lot of fun. I think that's a great mentality.
That's perfect. Yeah.
That's perfect. So Dan, what are one of those phrases or tips that you're like, you know what? This is something I wish I knew earlier on because it is so applicable. Could come from a mentor or from something.
One thing, again, something I've learned, people come in and they're saying, I have this problem, whether it's in real estate, whether it's law. The money makers tend to be the problem solvers. And the model I would teach my attorneys, and I also teach, my team in real estate, is you got to map it. There's no point in life where I pack my suitcase. And this is the way I think the mindset goes. I'm packing my suitcase, I'm going to the airport, and I'm picking my destination, whether it's Hawaii or whether it's Alaska. But I've already packed my suitcase. So I've got some problems. Or if let's say that from Utah, I wanted to go up to Boise, Idaho, and so I got to get on I-15. You map it out. Like the first thing you do is map it out. You start with your end in mind. I want a piece of real estate, and here's the size that I want. And then you just work backwards from there, and then be relentless in that. And it doesn't matter, like during a case or in real estate, it was the same thing. If I wanted that property and it wasn't on the market, maybe I'd have to wait. We just closed, or no, we haven't closed yet. We just got an offer accepted yesterday on a piece of property I have wanted since I built my law firm, because it's directly across the street. Bought 15 properties in the interim, but I wanted that property, and it came up for lease. We got a hold of the realtor that was leasing it, and just asked the simple question of, and this was my wife's idea, not even my idea. I have to give her all credit for it, was just see if they're willing to sell it. And I talked to them the year before, they were not willing to sell it. Well, the first day she said, yep, they are willing to sell it. They haven't had interest, and they're individuals who want 10-year leases, and that's not really happening in the market they're in. So we were able to get an offer accepted yesterday on a building I've wanted forever. And it was about mapping it backwards, like monitoring that property, staying on that property. Sometimes it happens quick, sometimes it happens slow. This one seemed quick, but it had happened slow. I wanted this property since 2007. And finally got it in 2025. So, but just map it backwards. And then the only other piece I would give you, and I'll tell you just a really quick story. Well, first I'll say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's key to success. But also communicate really well with the people you work with. So when we first came back from law school, my wife and I were driving down the road past all the restaurants, and she said, a chocolate shake sounds good. And I said, yes, it does sound good. And I continued to drive home, and we got another 4 or 5 miles, and she said, a chocolate shake sounds really good. And I said, yes, it does. And I drove past the last restaurant. She said, you are a jerk. And I did not know why. I'm like, what? I was just told you, and she said, I wanted a chocolate shake. And I said, I will turn right, or I will get you your chocolate shake. I have no problem with that. But the point was, I wasn't listening to her. I thought I was just holding a conversation and being polite, and that we were just chatting about stuff. She was asking in her own language for a chocolate shake. So learn everybody around you's language, and you'll be able to do a better job of meeting their needs. And when you meet people's needs, you have financial success, you have spiritual success, you have emotional success, you have relationship success. You just got to learn to speak other people's languages and meet their needs.
That's such a great story, because sometimes as a husband or as a friend, if you don't know what someone's asking you, it goes in one ear, not the other. Like, that was a great husband example, right? Sometimes we don't know what the wife is asking, then we can just say, do you want a chocolate shake, honey? Is that what you're asking? Yes. Perfect. Why didn't you say that?
We're 20 years past that, and I still say, is this a chocolate shake thing?
Is it a chocolate shake?
And she now knows that she's maybe not saying it directly, she's saying it indirectly, and it helps. So learn.
I love that. Is this a chocolate shake thing? I'm going to borrow that. So good. This was such a great conversation, Dan. I'm so grateful for not just the mindset that you have, but the example of what happens when you focus on what you want and then you manifest it. It took, you said, over 10 years, is that right, to get that property? But you said you wanted it. And when the opportunity came, you were the first one to pull the trigger. Sometimes we have those opportunities and they go by because we didn't pull the trigger. If you didn't ask, nobody would have said yes. So I'm glad that you gave the example of, hey, there's a lease they might be willing to sell. That's a great example for all of us. if you want something, you have to demand it. You have to do the work. What is a question that I didn't ask you about commercial real estate or about your life that you wish I had, and a story if you've got one?
Oh, I mean, that's an awesome question. I don't know that I'll tell a story, but I will just, I'll bear testimony of
Let's
real
hear it.
estate. I, if you're working in a regular job, the law firm made great money. Commercial real estate was a perfect complement. So think of it like, ice cream with cake. Because of the tax benefits, because of the secondary income, I could be more picky about the clients that I took in. It can complement you at every phase of your life. The tax benefits are overwhelmingly good, and you don't have to do it my way, which is we're very hands-on. We don't hire property management. We don't do any of that stuff. But I'm also in a phase where I'm retired and I need to do something or I'll drive my wife crazy. So it gets me out of the house some days. But it can be a blessing to you in so many ways. It may not be for everybody, but I think it is certainly one of the top 5 things that you ought to be looking at in your life if you're looking to level up.
So good. Thank you so much for your insights, all of the amazing experiences and your stories. I love the chocolate shake idea. It's so good. Are we being clear in our communication? That's one of the things I'm always focusing on. How do we help people help themselves? Help a lot of people, make a lot of money, and then have a lot of fun. So I had a lot of fun today, Dan. I hope you smiled a couple times. You enjoyed yourself. It was great to have you. Where can people find you online so that we can make sure, hey, this is how you can get to know more about yourself. I know you're one of our newest instructors with Renatus, which I'm so grateful for. So excited to hear your class and all the different things that you talk about. And your main topic was bankruptcy, correct?
It was bankruptcy in real estate. So
wonderful.
Where can you find me online? Probably nowhere except Renatus, because we're pretty private. We do most everything ourselves, and so I am on Facebook. We can be friends on Facebook. You can find me there. But overall, I'm just kind of a private guy. So if you want to reach out to me on Facebook, I would love it. I love a good chat with people, especially people that are passionate about the same things I'm passionate about. I could go on for days about different experiences and how it's changed my life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your service, for all that you do. Guys, if you want more of his content, you heard it. You got to go through Renatus, which is awesome. And I'm happy to help you with that. So absolutely love you guys. So appreciative of all that you do. And one of the things I wanted to let you know about, because every single day I'm helping people, I want to make sure that if you are having stage fright, you're stuck where you are in your story, you want to be able to articulate it in a clear way so you can monetize your message. That's why I wrote this book, right? 3 reasons stage fright costs and why you must fix them. Because if you have stage fright, that means you aren't going to open your mouth. If Dan had stage fright in that conversation, he wouldn't have been able to close this last deal and got it under contract. It's in everything that you do. Every conversation you have to be willing to open your mouth. I learned that as a missionary. If you don't open your mouth, nobody's ever going to get baptized. You have to be willing to go there, whether it's submitting offers on a commercial real estate property or it's connecting with someone. Every element of your life can be impacted if you get out of your own way and you overcome fear with faith and help the right people. So if you want that, go to the comments, let me know, DM me. I'm happy to send you that book. And it's going to be an awesome opportunity to connect with you guys more. Have a great rest of your day. And up next, guys, you do not want to miss, we have Jeff Griffin. So you're going to love that. Awesome. But thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate you. It was awesome.
I want the book. I want the book.
I will send you that book. And I hopefully will see you at our next event too. It's going to be April 18th over in Aurora, Colorado. It's going to be phenomenal. All about helping you level up your mindset, skill set, and tool set, and getting in alignment. So would love to have you there too. I'll send you that information, but appreciate you guys. God bless.